So this is that awkward moment where I just say hello and blabber for a bit, just in case we're not live yet, because you never know with Facebook, but I think we are there. So we are talking to Jana Krekic today over in, I believe, Croatia, and uh, fresh from a holiday, dragging her away from a holiday, in fact. So we will make this worthwhile. We're going to talk about two really important things that Jana has incredible insight into: keyword research in international marketplaces and lessons she's had from working with some huge corporates and aggregators. So great stuff. Jana, welcome to the live with us. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while, but it's always good to be back in your podcast.
Absolutely. Yes. Great to have you back. And so, in a second, folks, what we're going to do, as usual, is record our podcast episodes live. But because we are in the magic of live, where it's actually an interactive medium rather than just a podcast, one way sort of street, you can actually pop any comments or questions you've got into the restream, which is going to lots of different live places, and we can weave them into the show if they're relevant. Always about, please, only the topic at hand. So today we're talking about keyword research in Amazon international marketplaces, and then those lessons. And if not, you can do them on the replay, and Joanna or I will try and catch them and respond. So that said, that's me trying to do the live thing, but I really am a podcaster at heart. So let's do the podcast. Okay, let's get the camera back to me. Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to the 10 K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon and private label custom product sellers. If you're an e-commerce seller more broadly, there's a lot you'll learn from today. Today's guest, Jana Krekic, is an absolute expert in translation and international customization, localization, all that kind of stuff, all the Asians. Got a degree in translating, I believe. Also has
Yeah.
been the head of YLT Translations for quite a while, the founder and CEO. Which has grown like crazy and serves lots and lots of people with fantastic language related skills. So for Amazon sellers specifically. So Jana, welcome back to the show. Good to have you.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. It's as I said, it has been a while, but it's always great to be back on your podcast and to share some of the exciting updates in the international marketplaces.
Excellent. So the first thing is then keyword research in international marketplaces. Let's
Yeah.
plunge into the topic. So first of all, before we do that, I think we were chatting, and I think it's worth you relaying about the overall state of e-commerce, because that's the big picture we're in.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients are saying that they are seeing downturns in the business. There's some people are panicking, some people are chilled about it, depending on their personality. What's the overview of the state of the union from where you sit? Because you work with a lot of different sellers, some really big guys.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, just honestly, talking about the state of e-commerce, not about like, these fantastic predictions and all of that. And I just want to keep it like very real. And that is that like Q1 has been very, very difficult for everyone. It's been difficult for service providers like myself. It's been difficult for sellers, and everyone has been cutting expenses. I mean, people were, just cutting expenses when it comes to their PPC costs and campaigns, which are pretty much essential. So you can just imagine how much that reflected all other services, because people were not basically using any other of the essential services because as we all know, aggregators have kind of stopped buying brands. The multipliers are not going sky high at the moment. I think right now there are just a couple of aggregators still buying, such as Elevate Brands and a couple of other newer aggregators. But overall, Q1 has not been great, and a lot of our clients have seen a huge drop in sales. But I think that was just something that it could be expected, and you could sense it at the end of like Q4. But Q1 has been really rough for everyone, and then Q2 has been not so great either, but Q3 kind of is where things started picking up. And I know that after Prime Day, which has been the best Prime Day in history of Amazon, actually, that people have seen some great results and great sales. So I think that things have started improving. And we've seen that sellers are kind of getting back in that international saddle and like trying to just put themselves together and be like, come on, let's do it. Like, we can still grow this business. And I think now after this shock of like Q1, sellers are like, okay, so let me focus now on how I can build my business steadily. Maybe I'll be ready to exit in the next wave of buying businesses in like 2 years. So I think people are now like, just pulling themselves together and being like, okay, let me just be smart and strategic and think of this as a long-term game, and just build things how they're supposed to be done. So this is just kind of my feel, and this is, I think, the direction where the industry is going to, is heading to. I think it's still going to be a very challenging time the next 12 months overall, especially after recession hits the States, which is still hasn't happened. So we'll see what happens then. But I think it's next 12 months are definitely going to be very challenging for everyone. But from what I've seen is the situation from Q1 till now, like we're close to end of Q3, has improved a bit. I don't know what you think and what's your opinion about that, Michael.
Yeah, I guess what I'm seeing from my clients is that there's been, I mean, certainly those who are UK focused, it's probably similar with other countries that people are off spending money on services like bars, restaurants, and flights in a way that
Yeah,
obviously under
exactly.
lockdown, 100% of that consumer discretionary spending was focused on e-commerce. So it's kind of obvious that the overall sort of demand, sort of almost captive demand that we had in e-commerce was not going to be recreated, and so I'm reasonably sanguine about that. That was a blip. I mean, COVID was an
Mm.
exception, and everyone knows that. And the aggregators who work on trailing 12 months metrics have kind of woken up and gone, yeah, you know that thing called common sense, as well as trailing 12-month metrics and all that clever crunching of numbers. That's what's happening now.
Yeah,
Everyone's
exactly. Common
desperate
sense.
to get on flights for the first time in 2 years in many countries, right? So I think that common sense says that's where the money's gone. And then in terms of the size of the overall, consumer discretionary spending, what is discretionary? Discuss, are products that are more essential going to do better than products that are more optional, of course. But, to what extent that crunches in, I don't know. But I would say also, international expansion was a very interesting thing during COVID. And this is why we're coming to
Yeah.
today's topic, because it's not always predictable. I mean, parts of America really kind of shut down for bits, and those American sellers I knew who sold in Europe did suddenly 70% of their sales in Europe when it had previously been 20%. And
Yeah.
equally, people who only sold in France or Germany certainly saw several weeks where the Amazon censors pretty much said no to everything, or even a few months, unless it was quotes essential. And then, of course, what counts as essential now won't necessarily in 2 years. So I think one of the hedges against getting it wrong in investing is what do you call it? It's asset allocation. So having things in different
Hmm.
types of assets in different countries and different um, currencies strike me as a very wise sort of hedge against not getting it perfect right now. That's my main thing.
Mm. Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, the COVID times were not, real. I mean, they were just kind of the bubble was like blown out of the proportion, and
Yeah.
whoever was getting this or that is not something that could have be done like regular times, like this year or the year before that. So it's always easy to be like a COVID a millionaire, but what about after COVID? What does it mean when you go back to regular sales and like regular life and people want to travel? As I said, I think a lot of the budget goes on travel and everything that people did not have during those 2 years of pandemic. So yeah, I think the world is hungry for something else outside of the e-commerce, basically. But yeah, I think things will get back to how they were before COVID in the next probably 12 months or so.
Interesting. I don't necessarily think they're going to get back to that. I think they're going to be in a third state, which is harder to predict. But anyway, let's going my amateurish economic predictions. I love macroeconomics. It doesn't mean that I'm an expert enough in it
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
to
No,
guide
me
anyone.
neither. This
But
is just like,
yeah,
I was very surprised by a lot of things that happened after COVID, but we'll talk about that later. But so
yeah.
you never know. And I also never like to give like my predictions for 2023.
Yeah,
Like who
it's a
knows what's
mugs
going to
game
happen.
predicting, isn't it?
Yes,
Let's talk
exactly.
about keyword research internationally because I think that
Hmm.
we've talked about why is it wise to do international expansion. It's such a hedge against one particular market doing better or worse than you expected. I mean, if it does better than you expect, that sounds good in terms of sales, but
Yeah.
that can lead you to then over order for the next quarter that isn't so good. So it can imbalance things. So let's assume that going international is a wise concept. The first thing is, do we really need to bother doing new keyword research? I know in terms of a lot of listings, people will just, especially if they're in UK, now that EFN, European Fulfillment Networks, kind of reopened to a degree, and people
Hmm.
kind of can get goods from the UK
Yeah.
to Europe. It's a bit messy, but it's not as terrible as it was. Then a lot of people are just using Google Translate or letting Amazon do the translation. Now that's with the
Hmm.
listing as a whole. Um, do we really need to bother with keyword research? And if so, why is it important?
Yeah, basically, so keywords are something which is pretty essential in your content. Without any keywords, nobody will be able to find your product. Of course, there are paid ads, there's this and that, but at the end of the day, if someone types something that they want to buy, if you don't have that keyword in your content, your product will not show up. It's very, very simple. And you have to have everything. Of course, you have to have like both PPC, like keywords in your campaigns, but you also have to have keywords in your content because content is still king. And even if you have like your Shopify website or your Amazon products, you have to have good content with keywords because without having highly relevant keywords, you're basically just wasting your time. And what we've seen that happen is, like people just do Google Translate going to foreign marketplaces, and then everything works great. They have like great pictures and everything is in order. And then 6 months after the launch, their sales start dropping. And it's usually because of the content. This is what we've seen. They've had like great everything, but then we do an audit, and then the content doesn't make much sense. So it doesn't even have like, I mean, it doesn't have, make sense, let alone like no keywords. So that is really, really, really essential. And a lot of times content is the one to blame because you had drop in sales. And I know keywords are kind of really difficult for you to do if you don't speak that foreign language. And what people do is like they put it in Google Translate, and then you're like, hey, this is like probably a keyword on another language, which is really, those words might mean that what they mean in the source language, but they do not form the exact same keyword on a new marketplace because people in Germany would maybe not look for this blue travel cup, but like people in the UK will look for a blue travel cup. It will be like top of the search terms list, but like in Germany, maybe they don't even want to buy that. So it's really, really essential to do keyword research on each marketplace separately because that's how you will know what the audience wants from that marketplace. So people in the UK, people in the US, they don't like same things, even though they both speak English. Like people in the UK, they drink afternoon tea. People in the US, they drink Pepsi after lunch, right? So it's a cultural difference, and just replicate that to all of the other countries in Europe. And that kind of makes you think like, okay, well, I guess my keywords are not going to be the same everywhere. Now, the problem that happens is that the tools are not always going to be great for that. So we use Helium 10 as that is, like our go-to tool for international marketplaces, but that a lot of times doesn't give you highly relevant keywords. So you can get search volume keywords, like high top search volume keywords, but they don't always, they're not always highly relevant ones for your product. So if you're selling like a blue travel glass mug, whatever, maybe that's a high search volume keyword, but maybe you want to make it into like a car, like it's especially like to put a car in a car handle type of a blue travel mug, and you're not using that keyword, which is highly relevant for your product. And maybe if you use the blue travel mug you used in the States or the UK, it's kind of too broad and it's not going to drive people to your product, especially because how many people would think of a car friendly travel mug when they type blue travel mug? Not many, probably. And you will just blow a lot of money on your PPC clicks, and people will be just like, okay, well, I'm here, but this click will not convert because this is not exactly the product that I was looking for. So we see a lot of that, like too broad keywords, because all these tools, they bring you like a lot of big keywords, like too broad ones, and not like necessarily niche down to your product only. So the problem happens when you don't have a competitive niche. Like it's great for highly competitive product like wet hairbrush or something similar to that, that's like top seller on the marketplace, and that's where you get good, results in Germany or France or Mexico, then it's fine. But what happens when you don't have a highly competitive product, and you still have a potential for it, and you can make a lot of money off of it? And that's when these usually these tools are not that fantastic, and you are definitely not maximizing on the potential that the product has using these tools. So you have to kind of think, you kind of have to like think outside of the box at that point. So what we've seen that works really well, also for not for all products, but for a lot of products, is the data dive tool that gives you like, highly converted keywords. But what we found out is that there were, I think this was a Spanish marketplace. There was a food supplement that was not that popular, and the data dive tool would just show 2 or 3 keywords, saying these are the highly relevant ones, and that's it. So if you just use data dive tool, you would get 3 keywords for your entire content, and that's not enough, even though these are highly relevant, and you will know that these are not only like they have like big volume, but also highly relevant ones. You will only have 3 keywords, and that is not enough. So in that case, you have to mix and match with everything you have. You can use the highly relevant ones in the title, but then you can use a little bit more broad ones. Let's say if this was like a food supplement, then you can use something, let's say, I don't know, like you can use the word like food supplement, or goes well with something else, something like that. Like you can just kind of brainstorm a little bit and find something that's broad but will make sense, because you don't have a lot of these niche down keywords to work with. So I would say that you still have to combine a couple of different tools. But let's say for this product, using Data Dive and Helium 10, we got some really, really good results. But for the products that have not a lot of competitors and are not popular products, we've had some African snack. I forgot the name. This is the first time I've ever heard about the snack. I know my team had to like look on like Wikipedia. Is it like savory or is it sweet? We had no idea. It was just like poor information about it, but it was a really unique product. So for that, we use AMZ Suggestion Expander. It's not a tool you pay. It's an add-on from Chrome. So because all of these tools, they feed off of your competitors' listings. So what happens when you don't have a lot of competitors, or what if their competitors are not doing a great job, which they usually aren't in foreign language? You go to the AMZ Suggestion Expander, and then if you just type the main word, let's say you're selling a bonsai tree kit. So you just put like bonsai tree, and then you have like this drop-down menu with the keywords that would come before and after this main word that you type. So you don't see the search volume, you don't see the relevancy, but you got some really good keyword ideas. And then you can also check them like in Google AdWords using Keyword Planner, because all the Amazon content will also rank on Google. So this is also how you can use it, like when you don't have that many competitors, and you can still get really good results, which we have with like these type of products. But you have to know that you have to customize and try this or that, a lot of it like A/B testing, when you have different type of products. Like if something works fantastic on the US marketplace, because it's a huge market, you have thousands of competitors, you have thousands of these products, and you have great data, it will probably not work as well for your German marketplace. And in that case, you have to mix and match with these 3 tools that will guarantee work, and you will get a good solid keyword database. But so, just 2-3 keywords are never going to be enough for you. Yeah. And if you can get more than that, like I would say that per listing, not to of course overstuff or anything like that, I think 8 keywords are good for you, like for the first 1,000 characters. And I know a lot of people now are testing the 10 bullets. So instead of 5, you're going to get the 10 bullets. If you want to do that, I still suggest on focusing on the first 1,000 characters with title included, and then to leave the last 3 bullets with something that's going to be like, I don't know, like eco-friendly products, or like we help panda retreat, or something that's not too important that you need to use the keywords for. And then the rest is like goes to the A+ content about your brand. But we've seen more and more sellers also testing the 10 bullets instead of 5, and also keeping them very, very short. It's like literally like caps lock, which are still allowed in Europe, So you can use like caps lock still at the beginning of the bullet, looks still very nice. And then like just one sentence. And then you put it like in 10 bullets or 7 bullets, depending on what you're eligible to do. So yeah, I would say that this is the strategy that works now. And the data dive has been something that we've been testing since March, because I've spoken at Prosper Show with Brandon Young, who's a spokesman of the tool, and I was like, okay, let me just check it out, because I knew he was going to talk about it in his talk, and I didn't know what to expect, and I was really really surprised by the results, and we've got some really really good things. But as I said, if you don't have a highly competitive product in a highly competitive niche, don't expect a lot from data dive only, as it will only give you 2 or 3 relevant keywords, and that will be it. There will be nothing else. So you still would have to use some other tools and help you can get from the site.
Great. So thank you. There's a lot of detail there. So just to sort of feedback for people that quickly, the 4 tools you're suggesting. So Helium 10, good old Helium 10. And if you
Yeah.
want to get, I think we've got a reduction for anyone listening, amazingfba.com/Helium 10. I'm like everyone else in the world. It's basically a law that you have to be a Helium 10 affiliate because they're so big. But if there's anyone left out there who hasn't already got Helium 10, Brendan Young's tool is very good. I've had clients use it who are the UK-based sellers, but they sell in the US, and it seems very useful there. So it's interesting that you
US
say
pretty
the
much, yeah.
limitations, because a lot of tools are created by US sellers for primarily the US market,
US,
and it
yeah.
makes sense because it's the biggest, richest market, richest in the sense of data richness and richness of opportunity. And it's interesting that you're suggesting good old Google Keyword Planner and AMZ Suggest Expander as other ways to add in the keywords. And it strikes me more and more. I mean, I've been recently playing around with something completely off Amazon, just partly just to do something fresh and
Mhm.
try things outside the Amazon bubble that I've been living in for so long. And I've gone back to, Google Ads marketing. And when you're dealing with things where even a really commercial website and it's well set up and the intent's really good, you're looking at 1% conversion rates, you start to be much fussier about the cost of keywords and the being choosy about which keywords you're going to target. And I think on Amazon we've got into the habit of just throwing everything at a listing. And actually, I guess what you're saying is that you may choose to, target particular keywords, of course, in different parts of the listing, but you may also choose to target very relevant keywords or,
Mhm.
valuable ones through advertising. And then some of it you will accept that you get lower sales, but you're going to target through organic ranking because it just wouldn't make commercial sense to target through advertising. Is that more or less your thinking these days?
Yes, that's basically more or less. Yeah, just try
Yeah.
to, like if there's like this like African snack, like try to like beat and be ranked on Google, like try to do that instead of, like Amazon. And also, I mean, keyword panel was something that we've used before Helium 10 was even there, or it was even available for international marketplaces, and we would still get results because we couldn't get any other keyword ideas from any of the other tools. So good old keyword planner is still something to think about if you have no idea how to get keywords on something you're selling and you have like 0 to none competitors and no other data. Google has all the data you need. So
Yeah, right. And
yeah,
and the thing is that especially if it's going to go rank organically, you don't necessarily need to fuss about whether it's going to produce a return on investment in terms of the PPC within the Amazons of ads
yeah,
universe. But it nevertheless is likely, if you have got something unusual, to show up on a Google search result, right?
yeah,
If it's like an African snack made of snails' feet,
or
or
something.
I
Yeah,
don't know, I have no idea, making stuff up here.
yeah,
But yes, I think Amazon's one of Google's biggest customers, but also I think they're more similar than people think. We get used to thinking Amazon's a shopping engine and Google is an everything engine, including a shopping engine, right? So
mm.
I feel like it does work in similar ways. Sometimes we forget that and we just get stuck in the Amazon universe. So
Also, I have a really good recommendation. So for
please,
interpreting, I mentioned a Shopify website, and a lot of Amazon sellers, they do have Shopify stores, and even especially like bigger ones. But what I've also noticed is that Amazon sellers in the space, and basically Amazon people in the industry, they have zero clue about SEO, and SEO is super important. You know about like your listing content, but you don't know anything about SEO and how it actually works. People just like throw money at like Google ads, and it's all good, like you should do that as well, but you have to be like the part of everything. But like localization on your Shopify store is localization, yes, and SEO is very very important. So for that I can recommend a tool called SEM Rush, and you can use it to get the best keywords you can use on your Shopify stores. We also do that as well. And SEMrush has been my go-to tool ever since I was like in e-commerce like 15 years ago. It's like definitely like number one. And I think you do get like a couple of features for free just to try it out. So I would always suggest someone who wants to really get serious about it, because once you rank on Google for your website, you're there to stay for a long time. Like, you know, when I did our website YLT like 4 years ago, our website, like we're doing now the new design and new content and all that, but we got ranked, and that's it. Like for the last 3 years, we stayed. Like there's like, just when you type like listing translations in like all countries like globally, there's like Amazon, and then there's YLT, and then you have other, but just big translation agencies, not specialized in Amazon or anything, just being a big translation agencies. And we got like ranked on Google for that for like after a year, and we stayed there intact for 3 years. We did not update anything. We just had a good team working on our SEO using SEMrush. So I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. Funnily enough, I used SEMrush. I signed up for a free trial, and I was a bit too mean to pay because I think it's about $99 a month if you pay annually, which I would call $1,200 a year. Personally, this
Yeah, yeah,
whole annually
it's
monthly thing is
expensive.
BS, but
Yeah.
it's $120 a month. But if you're serious about it, and I have to say it's an incredible suite of tools. Ahrefs is also one that's really good. I've literally
Uh-huh.
signed up today as an affiliate for that. So if you want to go, you're saying all the
Nice.
affiliate links. And mate, I wasn't intended to be, pitching everyone, but amazingfba.com/SEMrush. I don't know if I actually can give you any special deals from that, to be honest. So if you feel like helping to give back to the show, having given you whatever 7-8 years of advice, then great. If not, go and Google it, do what you want. But it's definitely an amazing tool set. I mean, I scratched the surface and I spent hours and hours on it, and I really think the broader point that you're bringing out here that I think is a great thing is get off Amazon and think outside the Amazon bubble, even if that's where you're going to sell, because that's where the universe of buyers is also. They will focus on Amazon as a shopping platform, but they will also very, very likely put something into Google, go to Amazon, bounce onto Google and look at look for your site if you have one, which you probably should have, even if you're not trying to sell there, just brand reassurance, and then
Yes.
bounce back to Amazon. So if you can be in those places and understand, even if you're not in those places, but understand that journey and the keywords associated with those different places, I think that's super helpful because it's tracking in a very numerical, very trackable way, if you like, people's journeys are through the internet, customer journey, if you like, but not in a fluffy marketer kind of way, but in a really
Mm.
hard numbers way, which I think is super helpful because otherwise we start to see things through very narrow spectacles, don't we? If we're just on Amazon, I think.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
my overall take. And listen, great advice about trying to integrate a few of the tools there. Obviously, we've given a sort of snapshot of the level of depth that you guys can go into. So tell us a little bit more about what you can offer Amazon sellers.
So we can offer everything when it comes to content, anything from brand store translations, translations of listings, which is our core service. We also do copywriting. We cover all global Amazon marketplaces. We do Shopify, also copywriting and localization with and without keywords, depending what you want. We use all of these tools that I've mentioned, and I've just really mentioned them because I really think they give good results. I really don't have anything out of mentioning them and anything. I just think that people do not dedicate a lot of time to understanding how these tools work, and this is what is going to bring you sales by letting people find you, your product, your web shop, your brand. That's very, very important. So we basically cover all content, as I said, including packaging, translation. We have our in designer team. We even create flat files for you who don't want to copy paste something and you're freaking out if you're going to copy paste it into the right section and Amazon. Follow-up emails, basically everything that you have in English that you need done in other language, we can help you with that. And especially, I like to emphasize that packaging now for selling in Europe is getting more, is basically now more important than ever, because your product will be stopped and it will not be shipped to the country that you want it to be shipped to if you don't have a translation of the packaging and the back of your product in that language you're shipping your product to. So a lot of people use the peel and seal labels, but you have to have um, all the essential information is translated to all of the languages. So usually what people do is like they on the back of the packaging they do like 4 or 5 languages, like the peel and seal label, and then you have no problems because we've got sellers who told us that their products could be stopped at customs. They don't want to let them reach the warehouse because they don't have the information in that language. So that's something to be super, super careful with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Europe's changing quite quickly. Never mind Brexit, even if you took that out of the equation, which if you're based in the UK is hard
Oh,
to do.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
for everyone, I
absolutely.
mean, there's so many compliance regulations coming in, and I think a lot of it is driven by. Sometimes it's not at all common sense, especially EU legislation. But you've got to understand that if you're not communicating very, very clearly on every possible level, formal and informal, marketing and information with your target customers, then it makes sense that somebody's going to complain about it. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of a part of an overall way of, I suppose, localization is the word you would use, isn't it? So complying with local regulations, complying
Yes,
with what people are
localization.
looking for, what keywords they're looking for, just get tuning your product to the market rather than just chucking it out there and hoping, which is the old school way of doing it. That's brilliant. So where do people go to find out more from you?
So you can definitely follow our Facebook page, Loyalty Translations. You can follow us on LinkedIn as well. I would say that my personal favorite network is LinkedIn. And I just tend to update people on basically everything e-commerce wise when it comes to localization, some newest trends, some things that maybe people don't know, some of the interesting case studies that we have. So you can always message me on LinkedIn. You can like the post, comment, whatever. I love getting questions. I love being super helpful and just educating people on something that could bring them more money and more profit.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, look, it's been already very educational. We're going to talk about some of the sort of broader lessons you got from working with corporates and aggregators, but for the moment, this has been a really nice tactical, nice, quick, actionable wins, I think, for people. So that's really, really helpful stuff. Very practical. Thank you so much, Jana.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. There you go. Sorry. My computer's not quite behaving itself there. It took about 10 seconds to stop recording. But anyway, that's
Oh
what
my
editing's
God.
for. Right then. So we've got to get cracking before you have to head off. So let's
Yeah.
do a quick one here.
Mhm.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon sellers. Today we're talking with Jana Krekic from YLT Translations, experts in everything to do with international compliance and selling and marketing of your product, translations of listings, copywriting, getting the packaging done. They'll even deal with flat files. That's not a small thing. So we're going to talk about some of the lessons that Jana and her team have got from working with some really big companies, including some aggregators. So peek behind the curtain. Jana, welcome back, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Pleasure. Feels like it's been just 5 minutes. So, what have you learned? Who are you working with? Well, I guess you can't reveal names on the show, but give us a flavour of what we're talking about here, and then I'd love to know what about this that you feel we can learn from.
Yeah. So our bread and butter are still private label sellers. And we've started working with them close to 4 years ago. That back at the time they were like 5 to 6 figure. Whoever wanted to work with us, we were very happy. And then eventually it turned to be like a strong 6 figure sellers to 7 figure sellers. Now we have like 8 figures. We even have one 9 figure seller. He's like he is the biggest seller in India. He's doing amazingly well, and we're just kind of happy to have like a different type of sellers all under our umbrella. But what I've seen that at the end of last year, um, a lot of sellers have started cutting their costs, and we are not an essential service, so that kind of affected us as well. And at that point, I started to think that it might be better to switch, not to switch, but to work more with big brands like corporations, even though I know it was going to be very, very challenging. During COVID, we've worked a lot with, I think, every single aggregator out there, which was different than working with private label sellers. And a lot of our clients, our private label sellers, were acquired by an aggregator, and then we would never hear from them because the brand would either get killed or so that kind of felt like they stabbed me in my heart because we were catering this seller for 3 years. We've grown their sales, and then poof, like it's all done. So but yeah, aggregators had their own way of handling things, and which will be like tons of work, like very short time, and then they're gone, and then maybe like in 6 months they're back. So sometimes I had an impression that they were not that systematic because they were growing too fast, and some things probably got out of hand. But it was, I would say, it was close to working with a private label seller. But then my experience from about 2 years ago when we first signed for a very big brand, I'm just gonna say those were two or three brands that were selling in Sephora. So there was like beauty category products, and what it took me personally and my team, it was about like 6 and 7 or 7 months of like back and forth calls and emails and all of that, and then like they're waiting for this approval, that approval, and all that, and then eventually things start happening, and then they're like, I'm not happy with the quote that we got, I don't know, 3 months ago, when they were happy. So it's like a never ending back and forth correspondences and calls. But once you make that deal, and then you can expect amount of an X amount of work per month for, let's say, the next 6 months or next year. So that kind of gives you more stability and something that that will happen, because you're working with a corporation. Now with a private label seller, it's going to be like, so I'm not going to pay you now, and it's going to have rules. You have like payments or the terms and all of that. And so I've just decided that we should kind of focus more and more on those bigger brands and bigger corporations. And this is where I found LinkedIn to be very, very helpful. I post content, I post different videos where I just, go through different brands, both private label and big brands. And then I say, like, I love the brand, which I do, but like, let's see how well they're doing on Amazon. And then I like find what they're doing wrong. And they don't care a lot about the foreign content because they're very big, but they could do so much more. And I'm not talking about like Adidas or Nike, because they don't even need any content basically. But I'm just talking about different brands that are big, but they could do better on Amazon because I know they would care about the sales. So this is what I started doing, and we've got like a couple of brands to reach out to us, and we started working with them. But also after 6 or 7 months of like back and forth and back and forth. But working with a corporation has its own challenges, and it's very much different than when you work with a seller or that has a team of 3 or 4 people max, and things happen very fast. But sellers have certain amount of ASINs. They will not launch 500 ASINs every 2 months or 10,000 ASINs. You can expect that only from a very, very big brand. So it has its own challenges, and it has its own pros and cons. But for me at this point, that was a source of more steady work. And also I was really, I have like this big picture like for Wildty, and I'm like, like we should get in touch with these brands because it's really nice to, put on your page who your clients were. And it's going to be on our page once it's launched, the new page. So you can all see like what those brands were, but it has been very interesting and very educational for me as well. Like creating a company deck and stuff like that, just being on a more higher and more professional level. Because from what I've learned about Amazon is that it's not like, a lot of people are not that highly professional, and it's all like, yeah, whatever, just send this, that, like they're like no contracts, they're no scope of work. It's really, really rare that somebody asks you something like that. And I just kind of wanted to create something that's going to be more professional and like on a higher level. And, no matter who you work with, you should get these things done, and just get your things in order. And in my head and also in the company, I started feeling better once I got all these things in order, so that was something very unique. And I would say it's not for everyone, because you still would not know what you are doing, and you cannot just rely on that. But this is something what we've kind of switched more to.
So
And
one
yeah.
question I just wanted to ask, sorry to interrupt, I know you got a short time, but just to help the Amazon sellers who are listening, there's a couple of questions that we've got on our, we chatted about for the show that I think are really, really great for the sellers to get their heads around. I guess there's an assumption that we make that corporate big companies with a lot of money and you can afford to hire, really talented people, do everything better than us. But it sounds from what our chat before the show that you've not necessarily seen that. So let's make people feel a bit better about it. What do
Yeah.
corporates do badly that we as small and medium-sized enterprises do better, do you
So
think?
I would say that from let's say 9 or 10 big brands, like corporate brands that we're working with, is that they do not have very highly developed Amazon department. So they would usually not have the Amazon terminology. Like people would not know from the Amazon department they're doing sales on Amazon. They would not use the terms product listing. They would just say, I don't know, there was like a random word that they used. I didn't even know what they were talking about. And they were like, yes, the text or something like that, or the catalog inserts, what they referred to like product listings. It was just very, very weird. So they don't have the terminology and they don't have the knowledge. It's very kind of weird. It's like as if they've just watched a YouTube video and that they're trying to understand how it all works, but they're already head of the department and all that, and they have all the requests, but you're not sure what they're talking about because they have less knowledge about it than a regular smaller Amazon seller. So I would say that they're more educated and they are more into the matter than people working in the departments that are dedicated to Amazon in big corporations. And this is what I've just seen that happens all the time. They're not very knowledgeable. They're doing great because have a big name, but that's why their content and all the keywords and everything, they suck and they don't know how to do keyword research. And even some of them that have good listings, like they have a good content, they lack keywords. They don't have a single keyword anywhere. And that's just, doesn't stop to amaze me. But I guess they don't put a lot of effort in Amazon as well, but they still
Yeah.
want to sell and make more sales. So it means that they still kind of do care.
Yeah.
But their staff is not well educated. Yeah,
Interesting.
unfortunately. And it's sometimes very difficult to converse with them on the topic because you're like, what is going on here? Like, I just told them this, like, how can they ask me this? They're like a lot of weird questions and a lot of stuff that you would not expect someone would ask you, honestly.
Well, I mean, that's great news. I have to say that I've seen some huge corporations. I'm not going to name them for legal reasons, I guess, just in case they care what I think. But incredibly, unbelievably bad listings. And
Yeah.
not, by the way, sold by Amazon, who's the other person in the world who does not
Oh
know
yeah.
how to
No, no,
write
no.
Amazon
Not sold by
listings.
Amazon.
It's amazing, isn't it? Amazon's staff have not got a clue how to write a good Amazon listing. I mean, like two product shots on white, same angle sometimes, and just terrible, boring, short bullets with no keywords. It's just even now I see it, and that kind of reassures me. I think, great, there's space for us out here, so the
Yeah.
little guys and little girls. So that's the good side. So you've talked about the corporate structures that, to us as feisty, quick moving entrepreneurs. I know you're like that. You've grown your business like crazy since I first known you, which is congratulations. But we
Thank
often
you.
feel like, oh, that's ridiculous. We can do better than that. But obviously, they have a lot of strengths. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the position they're
Of
in. So, what do
course.
they do better than we do as the little guys? You've already mentioned documentation. Um,
Mm.
in what way is that a strength? Tell me about that first, because that sounds like a lot of work that doesn't reduce money immediately. Why does that matter, do you think?
It doesn't produce money, but it gets things in order. It makes them be like a real company, because they don't keep things in Google Sheets and they don't you know they have agreements, they have NDAs. Like a lot of like sellers and a lot of different agencies I know, they don't even have an NDA. They don't have, like, I'm talking about like basic documentation. I'm not talking about I don't know what, you don't have to have I don't know what sort of like invoicing system, like very advanced other things, but like personal accountant and other things like that. But I'm just talking about like some regular documentations, like, like when someone does something for you, send like scope of work, or you send NDAs, or you send an invoice with the payment terms and all of that. I mean, a lot of them you don't even have they don't even have the zero, like the accounting, any sort of accounting system. So that all kind of makes it very confusing, chaotic, and especially like if you want to sell your business, you want to kind of have these things in place. You cannot just be like, having like using Google Sheets forever and just not having any system at all. because
Yeah.
having two VAs and using ClickUp doesn't mean you have a system, you know.
No, really,
Um,
no. I mean,
yeah,
it's a lot better
so
than having no VAs and no ClickUp. But I mean, ClickUp, by the way, that's something else that a couple of friends of mine use and really like. But yeah, I
no,
think the
ClickUp
other
is
thing that,
great, but it's that what people think like, oh no, I'm like super organized, have my procedures, and you're just basically using ClickUp and you have your two VAs and that's it. And you have like a company and you don't have like bunch of like basic things that you should send to and from like people you worked with and so on. So I think that they are better because they have these official and legal documents. They're like super slow with that. There's like tons of miscommunication, but they do have this documentation that it kind of makes your life easier and you're sure that things are gonna happen and like you're gonna get paid and all of that. And also what I would say that big corporations do, because they have a limited budget, I mean that kind of changes things a lot, is the branding and the storytelling and just the company culture, the audience, you know, they kind of nurture everything better. Like when it comes to really good brands that you love, you know, like I don't know, I love the brand. It's called Poopery. So what they do is like when you go to the bathroom for number two, you want to spray the water of the toilet so it doesn't stink afterwards. And their marketing is brilliant. Like it's the smartest marketing I've seen. Like it's hilarious, but it's super fun. And you don't see Amazon sellers do that. Of course, because we're limited with budgets. That's absolutely, you know, normal. Nobody expects that from you. But I wouldn't mind seeing some creativity because a lot of sellers and a lot of brands, they look like each other because you just copy your competitors. You don't stand out by doing something creative or different, but you just play it safe and then copy whatever your competitors are doing. And that's it. And that's why all brands look alike. And I would say that bigger brands, they would kind of focus on the long-term game and being like, I'm here to win my audience over by doing something that's going to be different, and I'm going to do some creative things. And I don't know, like I like that YouTube. My husband likes that YouTuber. His name is Mr. Beast. So the guy that gives out like money, and I mean a lot of people know about it, and he just was like another YouTuber, but then he just kind of started like giving out money and like doing some like random things, like not like crazy things, but just like something which was kind of creative and out of the box that he didn't pay to do. Like he didn't need $5 million to build his brand and who he was. He just did something very creative. So I think that like this tiny bit of creativity could be applied also to smaller Amazon brands, because I think if your product is good, and if you do something like that, I think the audience will, you know, appreciate it.
yeah, and it's interesting that what you're saying is very, very interesting insight because I would expect a big brand to have a great documentation because they've got lots of people who spend their lives emailing each other documents. And that does
Yeah.
sound an expensive overhead that we don't necessarily all want. Although, yeah, should you get zero? Yes, 100%. And yes, ClickUp may reach its limitations for you at some point. But what you're saying about branding and storytelling is very interesting because, in a way, you'd expect the smaller people to maybe have more imagination. But you're right, I don't see much of that. A lot of people have the strength that you've articulated. I see that very, very clearly. They're very obsessed with the mechanics of how Amazon works, and that's a fantastic strength when a lot of big brands have clearly not got a clue. So we can feel conceited about that.
Yeah.
But what I think is giving away what we should have as entrepreneurs, and that does not require a big budget, is imagination. That single word you used. I'm like, there
Yeah.
is no reason why a little guy or girl, if they have that kind of brain, should not be capable of using imagination. So that would be, I would join you in that. Let's put out a call together, guys. If you are a seller and you don't have a ton of money, but you are an individual person that doesn't have this big corporate culture around you, be imaginative. There's nothing stopping you doing that unless you
Oh,
happen
and
to
I
be a
have
very boring
I have a
person.
perfect example for that. I just
Yeah, yeah.
remembered. So he sold his brand, so it doesn't really matter. I can talk about it. So the brand was called Coffee Gator, and it was like one of very, very successful brands. It was acquired by an aggregator at one point, but the idea of the guy who was a founder behind the brand was brilliant. Like he would literally go and interview people on the street about the coffee or like what they like to drink, and then he would put it like a nice video, like high quality production, which of course doesn't have to cost a lot of money. But the ideas that this guy had to like present his brand and like to talk to the audience were insane. It was like so smart and so unique, and that helped his brand a lot to differentiate, because people loved how the founder was, like trying to put out the name by interviewing people in the street, by having like this really cool videos and stuff like that. And it really resulted in, exponential growth and all that the kind of the good audience and branding bring together. So I would say that for me, like as a someone who's working with sellers, Coffee Gator as a brand was outstanding, and it was built by one guy. He started small and he grew big, but he did all himself because he had great ideas, and he also had a fantastic copywriter, because he would like write his content and all of the the follow-up emails and all that as like songs that rhyme, but like funny songs that rhyme. But it was brilliant. Like it was like the power of the word. And I would always remember something like that, because he had like a brilliant copywriter and he had brilliant marketing ideas that did not cost a fortune.
Love it.
And I really, really like that.
That's a fantastic. Well, look, that's a really positive note to end on. So what
Yeah.
we can do if we choose, but it's not common, but it's that it's absolutely possible. Imaginative in your approach to the marketing, particularly maybe video side, and imaginative and the craft of copywriting, which keeps coming up. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's an amazingly neglected area. I mean, and talking of copywriting, I mean, that's one of the skills you guys do, and obviously the written and spoken word is is your professional training background and your entire company. So tell us a little bit about what YLT Translations does before we head off.
Sure. So we cover all global Amazon marketplaces and Shopify as well. So we handle absolutely all content you have in English that you need to translate to other languages. So basically, we cover anything between 15 to 25 languages, 15 for Amazon and 25 for just global Shopify world. So anything from product listings to packaging translations, follow-up emails, brand store, um, translations, and also we do copywriting. So we do writing from scratch. We also do keyword research. We do a really, really good keyword research, and our keyword strategy is pretty top notch, because we do about a couple of thousands of listings every month. So we do know what works, what doesn't work. We don't go into your account, but we've seen results. So we have some really amazing case studies. I'm happy to share. And basically, we do something that it's called translating into sales type of business, because we really use highly converting keywords. So we make sure that once we do your content, when someone looks for your content in that search field, that your product will show up for the relevant search terms, not for something that just high in search volume, but also something that's really, really relevant for your search word. And if you don't have keywords in any of your texts or product listings, nobody is going to find your product,
Yeah.
and you're not doing it the right way.
Yeah, and I would just say to anyone out there who, if they look at your prices, you guys are not the cheapest, but you're very, very good. And I would just say, when you really think about all the things Rihanna's just given as a list of what they do and the discussion we've had today, quality of research, integrating that with copywriting, understanding the context, understanding marketing. This is a combination of skills that's critical. Like if you don't do it yourself and you go and hire a bunch of people to do it, fantastic. But don't kid yourself that you're going to go on Fiverr and hire somebody to just
Yeah.
translate your listing and get the right results. I've had clients do that. I've had clients hire YLT. I've had clients use Google Translate. Everyone's tried everything. It doesn't work. You can't just shortcut your way to this. I'm just saying, like, if you've got some rubbish product you don't care about, then don't bother hiring these guys. But if you've got something you care about, somebody professional needs to be involved somewhere. There you go. My pitch for you, because I'm a
Thank
believer
you.
in this. My mom was a language teacher, so I'm a bit biased towards translating languages properly, I have to admit, but I like the results are always very different. So don't mess about, guys. If you have something you've got to get dealt with, at least talk to WLT Translations and Jana and her stuff. Talking of which, how do people get hold of you, Jana, if they want to explore further what you can do for them?
So you can follow our Facebook page, YLT Translations. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and me as well. I love LinkedIn, and I post and I share tons of really good information. Sometimes we're the first ones to find out about something new and exciting happening in the international world, which I always post. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to offer any sort of advice, consultation. We also offer free audits on anything you've done for international marketplaces. And if you're wondering, maybe I'm not doing a great job, maybe something can be improved, we can definitely let you know.
Great. Well, I'll put a little link to it. Well, I'll sort with you after the show, and give people a chance to get a free audit, because that's always wise, in my opinion. Free advice from an expert. Why would you not?
Why not?
AmazingFBA.com/YLT, Y for Yankee, L for Lima, T for Tango. Great stuff. Jana, I know you've got to dash off and do a webinar from your so-called holiday, typical entrepreneur's holiday, i.e.
Yes,
working
entrepreneur talk.
at the beach. So,
Yes,
we should have got
this
a
is
shot
work
of you
and
with a
travel.
laptop.
Yes.
But anyway, listen, I'm grateful for the time and great insights. I really find that very interesting to know how we stack up as the little guys and girls against the corporates, assuming that the corporate guys aren't listening, which they probably aren't. That's good to know, that we got some real strengths that we could lean into if we choose to. So quite an
Absolutely.
uplifting thought for me. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and the recording actually stopped. Right then, folks. So thank you so much for being with us live. Don't forget to pop any comments or questions you've got in about the subject. Please don't ask me about retail arbitrage. We're not going to answer. But if it's about the subject of translations, localization, all that stuff, then please do pop your comments or questions in, and I will come